Okay, today we were playing A Cat and His Boy. It is a indie Game Boy game made in GB Studio about a cat helping his owner get through a depressive, traumatic event.
It's kind of cool. It's a little indie game I came across. So I guess we'll see how depressing it is.
Well,
time to get liquored up.
Now let's get liquored up. Let's go. Now, you actually met the developer at a convention, didn't you?
Yeah, I was just walking along at the Detroit Retro Gaming Show. I was about to leave, having gone way over budget, headed to Youmacon, where I also went way over budget. Yeah, I walked past, and I saw the developer had a nice little display for this, and he had a sign. I think this is out on Switch and a whole bunch of other things.
It is on
Switch, I think it's like
yeah.
$2 on Switch.
And originally he did this as a game jam, and then completely redid it, and I guess redid it a couple of different times, and eventually landed on Game Boy.
It made me feel so small. The world felt so big. I felt lost after that. Lost even in my own hometown. Here's that picture of the universe. Can you find me in all this mess of planets and stars? I couldn't find myself either when I first saw it. And that scared me. My mom, my teachers, they all blamed it on my parents' divorce. It wasn't the divorce that made me feel so small. It was the universe. So they all said I needed to see a therapist. I don't remember the therapy. I only remember a room, a very plain room with 2 chairs and a lamp. Every time I mentioned the universe, the therapist would mention the divorce. Wasn't anyone else afraid of the universe? We're all so small in comparison to the universe. Shouldn't we all be afraid? But then you came along, don't you remember? Hi, kitten, come here. That's what I say to every new person who joins our Patreon Discord. I'm like, hey, kitten. Hey, Discord kitten, how you doing?
That's not what happens.
That's not at all what happens. Please do not say shit like that in my DMs. If you say shit like that to me, I will just not respond. I'll just be like, well, I'm going to leave that unread. Hee.
So actually play as the cat.
Yeah, look at him. He's a little cat. I'm your new friend. My name is Leif. Aw, you're so small. Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. This is inaccurate. I just tamed some stray kittens, and it took weeks to do this exact thing.
So the goal of this game is to explore and solve item-based puzzles, but it's also extremely short, and we're worried about showing too much. So the footage is going to be bits and pieces of these puzzles that you solve, but never really fully show what you're supposed to be doing or how these puzzles connect.
Ooh, I found a sock. I think that's another sock. Tucked away the socks.
Not sure if they're clean. They're not. Good job anyway.
Let's see, can we talk to the boy? Oh, he's playing a Game Boy.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that. Looks like the radio needs a new battery. Ooh. The boy is now asleep. What do we got
What's that
here?
bunny doing?
Oh, I found a mouse. Ooh, a large dust bunny.
By the way, this game has a dedicated meow button if you press
Does
B.
it? Well, that makes it one of the best games of the year already. I am the duck of the ducks. If you want to get around me, prepare to watch your dreams crumble. Whoa. Okay, all right, fair enough.
So I think it doesn't, it's Game Boy Studio, and it doesn't particularly push the Game Boy particularly hard. It's not like a technical marvel or anything like that, but I think the art style makes up for all of that. I think that it adds a little bit of spice and a little bit of life to everything, and
Yeah.
I do think that the art style kind of makes a big portion of the game here.
What? Now I just need a skateboard.
Okay.
Okay, so I gotta go find a skateboard. We'll go back into Mom's room, see if there's like a skateboard or something around here. Well, I knocked over the bottle. Oh! Hey, I found another mouse. We found 8 mice. Let's play Game Boy.
Meow.
Hell yeah. I want to play Game Boy on the Game Boy.
It's like in Mario RPG when you had the Game Boy game that you could play.
Oh. Ah! Faked myself out.
This is extraordinarily simple.
You got the high score. You have to show it to Mom. She isn't going to believe it. Yeah, probably not going to believe that the cat set the high score.
Yeah. Oh, you can go on there. But what about the actual gameplay?
The actual Game Boy. I do find it enjoyable to, play as a little cat.
I feel like the different missions, so to speak, the different tasks, were moving at a very good clip.
Yes.
And then it kind of opened up to the point where it became more nebulous. And now we're kind of backtracking and searching and those sort of things. So I feel like it's still fun, but like you kind of, like with most games, you're kind of figuring out a puzzle, right? It kind of reaches a point where you're like, okay, like what exactly?
Yeah.
Like what?
I feel like I'm doing this just out of like weird kind of completionist obsession where I'm just enjoying the game. So I was like, well, I just want to see everything there is.
Yeah.
Also, I want to see that duck skateboard.
What do you think about the music?
It's pretty good.
I think it's pretty good. Maybe a bit repetitive.
Yeah.
This particular tune goes on for a while. So after a short time, we inadvertently, apparently, beat the game.
Well, that was a lot shorter than I was originally expecting it to be.
Yeah. Sounds like there's some stuff that we could have done to extend the gameplay, but still, it was only about like a half hour to 20 minutes. Maybe we could have squeezed like 40 minutes out of it if we would have known
if I would have
what
gone
we were
for
doing
everything, but
a little bit better. Recapping it, I feel like we can't even show much of this because it's so short that we'll just explain how to play the game. It just becomes a let's play. I think for a cheap little game, like that you just want to finish bing bang boom and support an indie developer, this is solid. It's just short. It's just very, very short. It should be like twice as long at least, I think, for a commercial release. I really like the art style. I think the art style is better than the gameplay, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I think that's fine. The gameplay is good.
It's just a little like object hunt with a little bit of a story.
Yeah.
And it's a cute little story.
And yeah, the story is super cute. And it's like it's also a very cheap game.
Yeah. I mean, I spent $25, but that's because like you had to print it on a cartridge. You had to make your packaging, which I love that everybody's doing the little cassette tapes now. By the way, the printing that you did on this cassette tape is beautiful. I think for what I paid, I enjoyed a little game where I went in and I had no idea what my expectations were.
Sure.
And I had a fun little time being a little cat. For stuff. There's some cute little designs, and I'm glad I got to, support an indie dev.
One thing that this is going to be a strange non-critique, actually critique of other games. So Game Boy Studio is a development tool for people to make Game Boy games.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know. And we've covered a number of Game Boy Studio titles in the past, and a lot of them were platformers or had platforming elements, and all of them in Game Boy Studio tend to be a little bit funky with the jumping.
Sometimes, yeah.
They often are. Yeah. Like 2 or 3 of the games I've played that are Game Boy Studio, they're just like it. I don't know if it really takes a lot to hone it in.
It just doesn't click the just the right way.
It almost gets. It's not quite there. And then in the comments of those videos, everyone's like, "Oh, it's a Game Boy Studio game." Well, that makes sense. The platforming. Oh, Game Boy Studio. Because it's sort of like from what I understand, I'm not a developer, but it's sort of a not turnkey by any stretch, but an easier way to get into Game Boy development. It's better than starting from scratch, essentially. Whereas this didn't go the platforming route at all. So it's like you don't get any of that, it's Game Boy Studio.
I think
it's like the mechanics are messed up. It's Game Boy Studio. No, this was real top down. It worked for that, But yeah, so we're gonna put some links in the description below. Check it out if this is something that you might be interested in. If you want to support a local Detroit Game Boy developer. Never thought I'd say those words in the same sentence, but there you go. And of course, if you are so inclined, please subscribe. We are painfully painfully close to 100,000 subscribers. And I want you to imagine how funny it'll be on the plaque when we finally force YouTube to give us that 100,000 subscriber plaque to make them print Hard4Games on a plaque. And think about the hilarity of making them do that, and hit that sub button. They become